And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the January 6th Eve edition. I guess that makes it Wednesday, January 5th. Well, tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of the domestic terrorism, the Capitol insurrection. And tomorrow's going to be a very big day. And I was hoping in my heart of hearts that today would be Merrick Garland Day. The Attorney General of the United States came out today, and I was hoping he was going to announce some indictments. You know, wishful thinking, I know. But the Attorney General did come out and he addressed the United States, the public, the live stream audience, including me and Evan. Evan on the board today. Fancy Brian in quarantine this week, but Evan and I watched this testimony, this speechifying in real time. And I was a little underwhelmed. This guy reminds me of Mueller. Remember Mueller? Good intention, very smart attorney sort of guy, sort of fumbled and bumbled his way through congressional testimony. And I'm not saying Merrick Garland didn't come off as astute. You know, he knew what he was talking about. But delivery matters, man. We're in communications here. Delivery matters. And I was looking for, something bigger and bolder, let's just say. So it ain't Merrick Garland Day. And if he ever does drop indictments, I'm not talking about the 725-ish small fry indictments, the smelt, if you will, the sheeple, the willing accomplices to the president's incitement that did indeed storm the U.S. Capitol 1 year ago tomorrow. Well, yeah, there have been plenty of charges of those kind of people. But the big fish, the whales, nothing, crickets, and still crickets. Although, let's call it strong words, air quotes, question mark. So let's play a little of the sound. I don't mean to undermine the impact of what the Attorney General has to say. I just think he should have gone bigger and bolder. Let's play it for the people. Evan, going to need your help here. Fresh sound, fresh off the presses. This speech just minutes ago. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, addressing the nation on the January 6th, and our first sound, he addresses the fallen officers. Played for the people, cut 19.
I know I speak for all of us in saying that tomorrow and in our work in the days ahead, we will not only remember them, we will do everything we can to honor them.
Okay, more from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Hopefully he's just warming up.
Those involved must be held accountable. And there is no higher priority for us at the Department of Justice.
Sort of the generic, we're doing our jobs over here. And understand, part of the audience for this speech, this was addressed to the American people, but this was also an intra-agency speech. This was for the staffers at the Department of Justice. And I mean, talking about a demoralized workplace. I mean, you think dealing with the pandemic's bad? Think about dealing with a pandemic and being part of the Trump administration. And many of these career law and order sort of people, they didn't necessarily want to hook their wagon to, Trump's insanity, let's just say. More from the Attorney General. Again, a little underwhelming, this speech. I found it to be. But, I'm in show business, folks. More from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Cut 21, please.
As of today, we have arrested and charged more than 725 defendants in nearly all 50 states and the District of Columbia for their roles in the January 6th attack.
And apparently there are still some couple hundred possible alleged future defendants, people they would like to track down and charge. But these are the small people. These are the small fry. I'm talking about the whales. When do we get to the whales? Well, Merrick Garland tells us, follow the facts. Cut 22, please.
We follow the facts, not an agenda or an assumption. The facts tell us where to go next.
Okay, follow the facts, man. I've been reading the newspaper here for a year since this happened. There's a lot of public reporting that seems very criminal. I mean, hell, Peter Navarro, the Green Bay sweep guy that wrote a book about it. Well, he went on Ari Melber last night. Ari Melber, MSNBC, lawyer by trade, throws a lot of rap lyrics into the show, something of a clever sort, that Ari Melber. But yesterday he had Peter Navarro on. And Navarro laid out the coup attempt on national television. Merrick Garland, we've seen it. We know it happened. I'm following the facts, man. What are you doing? Where are the indictments, sir, is ultimately what I'm asking. As the Attorney General will tell Crudy and all of us, there is only one rule of law. Perhaps no former president above that law, ? Cut 23.
There cannot be different rules depending on one's political party or affiliation. There cannot be different rules for friends and foes. And there cannot be different rules for the powerful and the powerless. There is only one rule.
Yes. And when's it going to start affecting those that believe they are above that rule of law? Let's say Donald Trump, perhaps. More from Merrick Garland. Cut 24.
Whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy, we will follow the facts wherever they lead.
Now, those are encouraging words. If you would like to indeed see the Attorney General follow the facts where they lead, well, they lead to Mar-a-Lago, of course. Little bit more from the Attorney General. Last one, right? Cut 25, if you would, Merrick Garland, earlier today, just perhaps an hour ago.
The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law.
Did you catch all that? At any level. Then do it. Then do it. The president, the current president, Joe Biden, will address some of this stuff apparently after the January 6th. I'm not exactly clear. Here is a little of the coverage from the Washington Post. Matt Zaptowski and Devlin Barrett on the speech from Merrick Garland. Attorney General Merrick Garland vowed to hold all those responsible for the January 6th riot accountable, whether they were at the Capitol or committed other crimes surrounding the day's events, saying investigators are methodically building more complicated and serious cases and would prosecute people. And here's a direct quote from the Attorney General: at any level. I think that means Trump. Again, here is the Attorney General quoted: the actions we've taken thus far will not be our last. Hope not. The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law. See how I do this? Merrick, a little bit of life, a little bit of passion. I'm breathing life into your words right now, sir. Perhaps he's listening. 844-967-2789. Just a little modest criticism of our Attorney General. Again, he said, the Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy. We will follow the facts wherever they lead. Now, back to the authors. Garland's remarks came on the eve of the anniversary of the Capitol breach, and he faces intensifying pressure. Do you feel the pressure to do and say more about the investigation and to focus more acutely on the actions of the former president, Donald Trump, and his associates? Debate has raged on Twitter, television, and newspaper editorial pages over whether Trump could be charged with a crime. And if not, what that might mean for future transfers of power. The Attorney General did not name the former president or those close to him. And while many of his statements were common sense assurances, I'd call them vanilla statements that could be said of any investigation, they seemed designed to address criticism that the department was not taking a broad enough view of possible crimes connected to January 6th or looking at high-profile enough targets, including Trump. A little bit more here, if I can. Depends on the Washington Post. Again, a quote from the Attorney General from his speech. We build investigations by laying a foundation. We resolve more straightforward cases first because they provide evidentiary foundation for more complex cases. There cannot be different rules for the powerful and the powerless. Again, you're prosecuting the smelt, the pawns. Get around to the bishops and the rooks, the big fish. A growing chorus of public officials, former military leaders, and others have suggested Trump may have committed a crime by encouraging the rioters or pushing efforts to overturn the results of the election. But some legal analysts say charges for Trump and others seem unlikely. Why is that? Given that public evidence has not pointed to a grand conspiracy, really, I think there is some public evidence that involved the president or his top allies directing rioters to breach the Capitol. So unless he said, go burn it down, he's not culpable. A little bit more. The Washington Post review of court records last year found that the vast majority of those charged federally were not known to be part of far-right groups or premeditated conspiracies to attack the Capitol. Instead, they were a collection of everyday Americans, including community leaders, small business owners, teachers, and yoga instructors who gathered in Washington to protest or try to stop the congressional certification of President Biden's victory. One more quote. Jonathan Turley used to like this guy. Don't like him so much anymore. There's no grand conspiracy that the FBI found, despite arresting hundreds of people, investigating thousands. What do you know, Turley? Merrick Garland, you could have laid it all out. You could have hammered it home. And he gave a vanilla speech with good intentions and the word vociferous a lot, right? He said that at least a couple times.
At least two.
I was counting. Come back. We're counting on you to call us. 844-967-2789 Devils.
Like build a rocket and watch it soar, or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, She Can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates, and he would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, Don from Wisco Home Goods here. Jeremy and I handcraft our 100% non-toxic candles from locally sourced materials in our Madison, Wisconsin facility. Wisco Home Goods candles come in a variety of unique blends and scents that you're sure to love. Add a little warmth to your home as the days get colder with one of our Midnight Cypress or Up North candles. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing candles and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Just a plain old Wednesday, January 6th Eve. It is not Merrick Garland Day, not by a long shot. I was looking for indictments. I was looking for, at least a dynamic speech. More showbiz than Mueller-like. It was like Mueller. Remember when Mueller gave the testimony? Watching Merrick Garland, similar in tone. These scholarly, legal, professorial types. They don't give a barn burner of a speech. Not the way I'd like to see him do so. A few of the notes I took, Evan and I did watch this speech in real time. And if you did or have comments on the Attorney General, and I know the obvious one, where are the indictments, sir? But the phone number here, 844-967-2789. A couple of noteworthy thoughts, at least stuff I scribbled down. At one point, Merrick Garland did spend a lot of the speech talking about January 6th, but not the entirety of the speech. And sort of as he was wrapping up his thoughts on January 6th, he said something to the effect, all Americans must protect each other. And I'm thinking, good luck with that. When's the last time you saw a Republican wear a mask? All Americans, not all Americans give a damn about each other, not in this day and age. He also went out and specifically called out case law. Shelby County, this was the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court that undermined the Department of Justice pre-clearance. Used to be if you had a history as a state of rolling out discriminatory let's say minority sort of policies, before you could change laws, you'd have to get pre-clearance from the Department of Justice. But Shelby County changed all that, basically gutted the Voting Rights Act and Article 2, at least according to the Attorney General today. And he did go out and he did specifically talk about that. And he talked about differing states. And I look at Texas, I look at the state of Wisconsin, where I live, where Republicans, although he didn't call out the party by name, I haven't seen any Democratic efforts afoot. And I mean the party, big D, Democratic efforts afoot to make it harder to vote. Not even for Republicans, not even in states like Illinois, where they listen to us on WCPT. They've got all the levers of power, but I don't see Democrats making it harder for the other side to vote, closing the polling stations in the exurbs. But anyways, the Attorney General, less political than a guy like me, just talked about parties making it harder to vote and redistricting. And redistricting, of course, is part of the gerrymandering. And that does go both ways, but I didn't hear him call out either party, primarily, perhaps because there are more Republicans in charge. Primarily those redistricting, those gerrymanders, well, they go to Republican advantage. The other thing he talked about, abnormal audits. And I'm thinking, we got an abnormal audit going on right in the state of Wisconsin. We've got a former Wisconsin Supreme Court justice, a corrupted guy, very partisan, called it a rigged election like the day after the election. And somehow he has been tasked with doing a partisan witch hunt here in the state of Wisconsin, very McCarthy style. And he's trying to throw Democratic, mayors in jail? And the Speaker of the Assembly, well, there are groups that are seeking public records about this investigation, and he's effectively refusing to turn them over. So there's a little bit of reporting today from my own backyard. There are Democrats like those that are in the crosshairs, like the mayor of Green Bay, Gingrich, who wants to see a public apology, and hell, he wants it published in 3 papers. That's what he's asking the court to do. There is a district court in Dane County where I live that's trying to hold the Speaker of the Assembly accountable for failing to act, even at the direct request of the court, to turn over records. It's almost like they're following the lead of Trump, like they're above the law in some way, shape, or form. Anyways, the Attorney General talked about the abnormal audits, and those are happening right here. That goes beyond the recount that Trump requested and had granted in, the 2 most Democratic populous counties in the state of Wisconsin. That would be a within your rights recount. And then we had the Legislative Audit Bureau, the formerly nonpartisan group, although, that group used to give their audits, election audits, to the election commissioners. And this time they withheld that information for some partisan unknown reason. But at least they're the group that's tasked with these sort of things. But when you hire an outside prosecutor and he hires a bunch of Trumpster, I mean, literally Trump administration Republicans to go out and do a witch hunt, and you start threatening to throw Democrats in jail. And I mean, man, the election, I don't know if you check the calendar, Gableman, Voss, Republicans, but Joe Biden won over a year ago. We're about to relitigate the domestic terrorism your party had, in response to the lawful election of Joe Biden. A few more of my notes from the speech from Merrick Garland. It is not Merrick Garland Day. Now, he talked about the fact the big lie has been repeatedly refuted. Of course, in multiple courts of law, there have been over 60 failed lawsuits, something of that number. And he pointed out that he thinks the Attorney General of the United States thinks that Congress should act to protect voting rights. Well, I agree with him on this point, and we will soon see if Democrats like Joe Manchin are serious. Now, Manchin hasn't budged on the Build Back Better, but my understanding is he gave some modest indication he might be for filibuster reform, which is the only way we will get a codified congressional remedy to some of the problems laid out by the Attorney General today. Here's what else he said. Responsibility, basically to refute the big lie. That responsibility lies with every elected official. What about you, Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz today, senator, very guy that, refuted the electoral outcome. Was the first guy, Arizona, no, I object. Right, that guy, Ted Cruz. You all know Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had the Capitol Police Chief on the Hill giving testimony in the Senate committee today. Didn't hold Trump accountable, didn't mention, his own party's complicitness, but did want to know, why didn't he do more to stop the violent acts of January 6th 1 year ago? And I'm like, you're up to your eyeballs in this. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open. We're talking January 6th Eve and people being above the law. You're not above the law. 844-967-2789.
You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM. That's pretty cool.
Hey, I'm here from Knuckleheads. Have you seen our new location yet? Come on down to 520 State Street for all your CBD needs. We have a huge selection of gummies, oils, and a variety of other CBD products. We also have a gigantic walk-in humidor. The knowledgeable staff at Knuckleheads will work with you to find exactly what you need. Mention Devil Radio at checkout to get 15% off your next order. Knuckleheads, now at 520 State Street. We'll see you there.
Do you need to hire? Let Devil Radio help your business find the right candidate with our Help Wanted half minutes. Devil Radio will create a 30-second job listing for your business. Play it on Devil Radio for the month. We'll feature your job listing during afternoon drive on Fridays, and we'll even publish your Help Wanted listing on Devil Radio 927.com's website, all for just $300 per month. If you're hiring, Devil Radio can help. Call today.
Update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished lower. The Dow down 392 points. Organizers of the Grammy Awards say there are too many risks. The January 31st ceremony has been postponed because of the coronavirus. No new date has been set. The move was announced around the same time the Sundance Film Festival canceled its in-person programming set to begin January 20th and shifted to an online format. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says the Omicron variant is dominant.
Based on CDC genomic sequencing, we now estimate that Omicron represents about 95% of cases in the country, and Delta represents the remaining 5% of the cases.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says Omicron seems to be less severe, but sheer case numbers can be overwhelming. Hong Kong authorities announced a 2-week ban on flights from the U.S. and 7 other countries and are holding 2,500 passengers on a cruise ship for coronavirus testing. testing as the city attempts to stem an emerging Omicron outbreak. I'm Ed Donahue.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code FREE.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Tuesday, Republican state lawmakers proposed a package of bills for this year's legislative session that focus on bolstering law enforcement through recruiting more police officers and prohibiting bans on no-knock search warrants. Notably, rather than investing the more than $2 billion surplus Wisconsin is currently experiencing, the Republican-authored proposals attempt to use American Rescue Plan funds to fund the initiatives which the legislature does not have authority over. Yesterday, Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich requested the Waukesha County Circuit Judge overseeing a lawsuit brought against the cities of Green Bay and Madison by Michael Gableman to force Gableman to issue an apology over false claims Gableman made about City of Green Bay officials. The request includes taking out full-page ads in newspapers to issue the apology. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It is not Merrick Garland Day. The Attorney General of the United States, he gave a public speech, and I didn't find it overwhelming, let's just say. Some did take great heart in the speech, and some think, including John Dean. John Dean was, Nixon's White House counsel. John Dean's appeared on this show. It's been some time, but John Dean was tweeting out today that the Trumpsters should not sleep well. A little bit of an explanation. Then we're going to the phones at 844-967-2789. The quote that got everyone's attention, apparently, including John Dean's, was that, well, let me read it specifically. He tweeted it, at any level, Attorney General Merrick Garland, according to John Dean, on who will be held responsible for attacks on democracy, Donald Trump and his co-conspirators should not sleep well. Another legal eagle, Andrew Loeffler, said, bold statement by AG Garland. I like it. No, boldish. Another tweet out from Loeffler. Garland wouldn't say something like that if the DOJ wasn't going to make a move. And then one other legal expert, Harry Littman, said it also makes it at least a tad harder to refuse referral from Congress backed by strong evidence. Every indication, and Liz Cheney's out on front on this, she is the vice chair of this January 6th committee. She's looking awfully hard at perhaps issuing a criminal referral to the Department of Justice on the guy who either stood by or incited the violence on January 6th. And she has done a little more than implied that that is former President Donald Trump. So if Congress makes a referral in light of the, we're going to investigate and prosecute on all levels, John Dean seemed quite impressed by that statement. I took note of that statement, but, the proof is in the pudding. Last time I checked, he hadn't even gotten around to holding Mark Meadows in criminal contempt yet. When he does that, that'll be a small move in the right direction. 844-967-2789. What are your impressions? The Attorney General kind of left me wanting. Jeff from Madison, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, I would say that's a little bit of weak sauce there, but didn't Trump
pay $3 million for a recount in Wisconsin, and it turned out he's a bigger loser than we thought?
Yeah, mathematically speaking, I think they found more ballots that were cast for Joe Biden. I think numerically, after the recount, Trump lost by a larger margin. And that's been confirmed like 3 other times, Jeff.
So I'm really, I'm not understanding where all this fraud is happening, and maybe CJ or somebody else could call in and tell us exactly where it's all happening.
It's not the fraud, because of course they cannot offer you any proof of actual fraud, Jeff. Because the only fraud I saw happened at like the Villages in Florida. Some Trumpsters double voted. But numerically speaking, that didn't change any outcomes. I mean, there's always going to be a few that are willing to risk charges for, because they're so passionate about their politics. But ultimately, Jeff, other than a handful, and I'm talking a literal handful around the nation, there is no proof of fraud. So what Republicans will say is that their followers, well, they think that it was a rigged election, but thinking it awfully hard doesn't make it back, Jeff. And in fact, most of these Republicans know better. They won election on the very same ballot that they question the legitimacy of. Well, they don't question their own elections, do they, Jeff? I've not heard a single Republican saying, maybe I wasn't legitimately elected.
Absolutely not. Well, thank you, Crute.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. 844-967-2789, an old familiar name, Bill from Oconomowoc. How you been, Bill?
Hey, great. And I got to give you a pat on the back and a great shout out. I'm glad you have another station. I'm listening to you on it. You do a wonderful job. What you do is you give Wisconsinites a chance to deal in reality, not fantasy, reality. And your points are just so well constructed and well made. You just touched on one that I can't agree with you more. They never questioned the election when they won. And let's say there was just as much fraud then as there is when they lost. But they didn't care about it then. But getting back to the point of what you do, you just do a wonderful job. I hope this is the beginning, not the end. I hope you expand to more stations. I hope you're all over the U.S. People appreciate when they're talked to as intelligent, not ignorant. There's a certain amount of people that love to drink downstream from the herd, and we know what happens to them. But Mike and your whole group, thanks. You're just awesome. Have a great day.
Well, Bill, I'll take credit for this. I got some really great people working with me here at Devil Radio and at our new affiliate in Waukesha, WAUK 540 AM. You can hear that everywhere in eastern Wisconsin. And we've got 101 FM in the Shaw. Very proud, very excited that we've got more affiliates. And I think if I added it up, Wisconsin's got about 5.8 million people. And I think our signals, clear signals, we got 4 combined signals here in the state of Wisconsin. I think we're covering about 3 million people. I think we're covering more than half the prospective voters in the state of Wisconsin, Bill. So, that's a start. We'll see where it goes. But why limit ourselves at the water's edge? Why not go worldwide, buddy? 844-967-2789. My pal PT from Milwaukee, another old name, old friend. Welcome back, Paul.
Hey, Crute. So, I listened to part of Garland's thing, and I was actually impressed.
What was impressive to you, Paul? What part of that impressed you? His pronunciation of vociferous?
No. Actually, he was talking to all the, the liberal progressives that want justice done today, and they want him, to get all these criminals and throw them in jail, and basically saying to them, no, we don't do it that way here. Maybe Trump's do it that way, but not this DOJ. We're going to do it in a methodical, nonpartisan way. And he also talked about, the freedom of speech. That is protected, but not the freedom to threaten. And that is not protected. So he's kind of, I've heard it from this show, and I've heard it from MSNBC that Garland isn't moving fast enough. Well, he's got a big freaking job right there. And there's thousands of people who are involved in this investigation. I was pleased with what he said. I really was. So,
Paul, you know what I take encouragement by? And I read at least part of a Post article on the coverage of the Garland speech. And they got the Trump apologist, Jonathan Turley from George Washington University. And Turley said, you know what? We don't have any grand conspiracy. We don't have like 1,000 people that all got together. And Paul, here's an ironic headline, and I appreciate you listening, buddy. Thanks. Hopefully you're listening on our new affiliate, 540 AM, WAUK. But literally tomorrow, a new website's going online. And here's the headline, Travis Geddes over at the Raw story. More than 1,000 public figures exposed as accomplices to Trump's effort to overturn democracy. I'd call that a pretty grand freaking conspiracy. And all their names, they're calling it the Insurrection Index. They've identified 1,011 individuals in position of public trust, including current or former government employees, that played a role in the former president's bid to hold on to power despite an election lost, as well as 393 organizations that were determined to have taken part in Trump's attempt to overthrow American democracy. At least that part's being reported by The Guardian. Here's a quote. These are folks who silenced the voice of American voters, who took a validly held election and created fraudulent information to try and silence voters. That quote from Christina Ball Owens, executive director of the voting rights group Public Wise. A little bit more from her. They have no business being near legislation or being able to affect the lives of American people. Now I'm looking forward to this list going public, because tomorrow I'm looking forward to, let's just say, amplifying a few of the names on the list. Because some of those people, the public figures, they're Wisconsinites. They live in my backyard. 15 Wisconsin Republicans, including 14 assembly members and 1 state senator, wrote letters to Mike Pence on January 5th, asking him to basically not certify the election here, the electoral outcomes in the state of Wisconsin. Above and beyond that, there were 10 fraudulent electors that presented themselves under fraud, because Joe Biden won the state of Wisconsin, but they claimed Trump had. And they created fraudulent documents that resembled the actual elector documents. So while the Democrats were, picking their duly slated electors and casting their votes for Joe Biden, well, Republicans were perpetrating a fraud in real time at the very same time at the Wisconsin State Capitol. And there were 10 on that list. And one of those guys, Bob Spindell, I've named him quite a bit of late, he's a Wisconsin elections commissioner. Do you think he should be ongoing? Because I have a few, let's just say I'm a skosh skeptical. I'm a little suspicious, as Ron Johnson might say, that Bob Spindell's actually got, sort of a nonpartisan electoral best interest in mind. Because he's proven he's willing to commit crimes. A little bit more here about this insurrectionist list. The index will go live online Thursday on the 1-year anniversary of the January 6th insurrection. And it will include 147 members of Congress. All Republicans, I suspect. You think any Democrats are on that list? I don't think there are. 147 members of Congress who objected to the certification of President Joe Biden's electoral win, as well as state legislators, school board members, and other elected officials across the U.S. who questioned the election results or took steps to impede certification. I wonder if they include the fraud perpetrated here in the state of Wisconsin in that list. A quote from Mark Elias, a legal advisor to Public Wise. Mark Elias, he is a Democratic lawyer. Here's what he says. We are 1, maybe 2 elections away from a constitutional crisis over election subversion. If we don't recognize who was behind the attempt to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, then next time we will be less prepared and it may succeed. Elias called on Democrats to strengthen their efforts against Republican attacks on democratic institutions rather than making voting rights just one cause among many. One more quote from Elias. The central theme of the Republican Party today is undermining free and fair elections. Under Trump, that has become a credential within the party. Yes, it has, Mark. And we can't let those folks win without a fight, because if we do, If we do, we lose our democracy. 844-967-2789. Mark from the SAC, appreciate your patience. Welcome back, my friend.
Oh, not a problem. And did I hear earlier that something about them destroying some of the records that were requested in conjunction with the Gableman fraud?
We're not clear if records have been destroyed, but there were records provided by one participant in, let's say, email communications. And the other end of the communication is the Speaker of the Assembly, Robin Vos, and Vos refused to supply his end of the very same communications. So he's already caught, Mark. They already know perhaps he destroyed the evidence, or perhaps he is just withholding evidence from justice. But the district court wants him to be deposed under oath, and the Speaker of the Assembly. I mean, I don't know. Is he going to claim he's a Trump kid? I don't know how he's going to, get away with not being deposed, Mark.
Another insurrectionist supporter, probably, that who knows how many of these, like you were saying, I mean, the Bob Spindell, the guy is one of the only ones that the Racine County sheriff didn't want arrested and jailed for what they supposedly perpetrated.
And the interesting point is Bob Spindell voted the same way as the other elections commissioners the first time. It was only to the second time that he reconsidered. It was a 5-1 vote. I guess they didn't hold him accountable for his first decision. Only, the more well thought through Trump supportive second decision. I mean, the felonious actions of the Wisconsin elections commissioners allegedly was to give advice during a pandemic. That's their job. That's what they do. You don't have to like the advice, but it doesn't make it a felony. Mark Thompson, a Wisconsin elections commissioner, will appear tomorrow at 4:50 right here on the Devil's Advocates radio show. In deference to the fact that it's January 6th. Today's the eve. Come back with us.
The COVID-19 vaccine.
Do we really know about the long-term?
Did you read that thing on the internet about that?
There's a lot of talk about COVID-19 vaccines. Talk to your doctor or healthcare provider to make the decision that's right for you. Visit getvaccineanswers.org for more. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents that make a perfect holiday gift. Plus, at Wisco Home Goods, we believe in giving back. With our Do Good, Smell Good campaign, a portion of the proceeds go to local charities. So support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
Here's today's STEM tip. Make your selfies look even better with science. Take your pics at golden hour right before the sun sets. The wavelengths made by the atmosphere create a perfect golden light for that beautiful face of yours. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi there, I'm Kirk Bankstad and I own the Monaco Brewing Company. And I also have a super PAC. We make good trouble in the North Woods of Wisconsin. You can support our efforts at the MonacoBrewingCompany.com and buy our Wove gear like t-shirts, hoodies, and trucker hats. Enter the code RADIO and get 10% off on your next purchase. A portion of all sales support the Monaco Brewing Company Super PAC, which is dark money meant for good. That's the MonacoBrewingCompany.com.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin uprising, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the January 6th Eve edition. Got a big show planned for tomorrow. Former U.S. Attorney James Santel, Elections Commissioner Mark Thompson, as mentioned. And Mark's going to roll out a new show right here on Devil Radio and WAUK 540 AM. He's rolling out Monday. Evan, you're going to produce that fine product. It's calling it the Paul Revere Show. Monday night, 7 p.m. It will, I guess, record live. You'll be able to hear it live. You'll be able to call in. Same number, 844-967-2789. And also a Biden U.S. senatorial candidate, Sarah Godlewski. Apparently, she thinks Ron Johnson from the state of Wisconsin might have, been a little too friendly with the insurrectionist and would like to replace Ron. We'll have her on the show 4:20 tomorrow. It's going to be a big show. Hope you tune in then as well. But your participation in this show is damn near necessary at 844-967-2789. I've got some new polling out about the January 6th, 1 year later. And Jennifer Rubin, formerly conservative columnist, now they just call it Opinion by Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post. Here is what she notes about this new polling. A frighteningly high percentage of Republicans remain in utter denial about the January 6th insurrection, choosing to exonerate the president who instigated it and downplaying the violence that occurred. Still, let's remember that a very large share of Americans, have not lost their minds nor forgotten last year's events. A new Associated Press in our NORC poll shows results similar to other major polling. Some 57% that say that former President Donald Trump deserves a great deal or quite a bit of blame. That number grows to 70% when we include respondents who think Trump was moderately to blame. I'd say moderately or more. Even 4 in 10 Republicans say he bears at least moderate amount of responsibility. It's still mind-blowing that 60% of Republicans say Trump bears little or no responsibility. That number, however, is 11 points lower than it was a year ago. Let's not forget, a year ago, there was 71% of Republicans that thought it wasn't Trump's fault. In addition, the poll says nearly 2/3 of Americans say the riot was extremely or very violent. And about 7 in 10 think Congress should continue investigating the events of January 6th. 2 things can be true. 1, millions of Americans can be deluded about January 6th and think that violence is acceptable. And 2, a big majority know Trump was responsible, support the January 6th committee, and reject violence as a way to settle elections. Once we come to grips with that dichotomy, several responses should follow. First, according to Jennifer Rubin, President Biden should accurately cast the January 6th deniers and pro-violence crowd as a dangerous fringe. When your side has 60% or more of the public behind it, you should talk about it a lot. I do, Jennifer. You need to remind voters of the stakes and deprive the menacing minority of recruiting prospects. You'd be wise to identify the source of the threat, Trump and the MAGA movement, so a majority of Americans can prevent them from recapturing power. She writes, it makes zero sense to say that we should move on because we cannot persuade the crazed minority. The point is to keep everyone else focused on the threat. Second, because we have millions of people who are receptive to calls for violence, we need a serious and visible law enforcement and national security response. Looking at you, Merrick Garland, the Justice Department should do more to highlight the threat, more to reach out to state and local law enforcement, and more to build out its capacity to fight domestic terrorism. Aside from a speech in June, the Attorney General has not done much to raise public awareness of the threat. And third, according to Rubin, we lack a serious whole of society response to the threat of domestic extremism. A proper one should be address inroads it has made into the military. It must include white evangelicals' recognition of the growing connection between Christian nationalism and violence. Robert P. Jones, chief executive of the Public Religion Research Institute, recently reminded us of the prevalence of Christian imagery at the Capitol. Comfortably intermingled with the tributes to white supremacy were Christian symbols and rhetoric. They were numerous Bibles, crosses, Jesus Save signs, and Jesus 2020 flags that mirrored the design of Trump's campaign flag. A recommitment to nonviolence, tolerance, and democracy must come from within these communities. You listening, pastors, white evangelicals? Finally, Rubin writes, as groups such as New America have argued, actors in civil society and philanthropy should start working to anticipate and prevent violence, reset public leaders' conduct, strengthen social cohesion, and bolster democratic reforms. In sum, she brings it to conclusion here, as will I. In sum, we have treated the problem of violent extremism too broadly, causing politicians to cower in fear of political minority, and too narrowly focusing too much on legal and political reforms. The data tells us that democracy and nonviolence are political winners. You listening, Democrats? They are political winners. And that dabbling in political violence, what do you know? It's a loser. We need to start acting as though we are under threat from a pernicious, anti-democratic, and violent minority, because we are. Right, Jennifer Rubin. Well written. Sort of haphazardly read, but, I'm not great at reading aloud. I prefer to talk to you on the phones at 844-967-2789. Julie calling in from KTNF 950 AM. Julie, welcome.
Hi, guys. Just quickly, I'm frustrated that nobody calls it an attempted coup. And you know what happens with an attempted coup? There's always another attempt, because that's really what it was. And so what do you think about that? Why do you think the word insurrection is more commonly used?
I've used the term coup myself, Julie, and I was quite impressed with Ari Melber on MSNBC. The fact that Peter Navarro would go to MSNBC and grant an interview was a little stunning to me. He's a former Trumpster, but he also wrote a book about the coup attempt, and they called it the Green Bay Sweep. And the Green Bay Sweep was this governmental effort to overturn the certification of the election. And Navarro went on live television yesterday and described, Julie, what I call a coup attempt. And Ari Melber let him, hang himself for a while. And then Ari Melber, and we're going to play this sound in hour 2. Hope you stick around for that. But Ari Melber basically said, what you are describing, sir, is a coup attempt. I think what gets lost, perhaps in the, the apologies of what's his face from George Washington University, is that the coup attempt was really Ted Cruz and Paul Gosar and legislative Republicans. What they were trying to do was shut down the certification of the election, throw it back to Republican-led state legislatures, or perhaps the House of Representatives, to overturn the duly elected president of the United States. And that is by definition a coup. I know, because Peter Navarro laid it out on TV last night. Ari Melber said, sir, what you're describing is a coup attempt. So I like the word. It is very appropriate. Come back, hour 2. It's very appropriate that you stick around.
Pat Slattery here of Slattery's Automotive Service. Winter's coming, and that means now's the time for you to start thinking about snow tires. Travel winter roads with ease on Hakkapeliitta snow tires. Hakkapeliitta is the top-of-the-line snow tire, made in Finland and eco-friendly. If it's snowing, they'll get you there. Give me a call at 608-848-6123 to get yours set. Slattery's Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
At Chaz Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you, building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The coronavirus and the Omicron variant has forced a postponement of the Grammy Awards at the end of the month. The Sundance Film Festival in Utah is going all virtual. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says virus cases are up 98%. The other numbers aren't as high.
The 7-day average of hospital admissions is about 14,800 per day, an increase of about 63% over the previous week. And the 7-day average of daily deaths are about 1,200 per day, which is an increase of about 5% over the prior week.
Because of the coronavirus, the NFL is looking into other potential sites for next month's Super Bowl. It's scheduled in Los Angeles. Virus restrictions are increasing there for attendance at indoor events. Today in Philadelphia.
This is, without a doubt, one of the most tragic days in our city's history.
Mayor Jim Kenney is talking about a fire in a duplex. 13 people, including 7 children, were killed. There are fears more people may be dead. Investigators in Philadelphia say it appears the smoke detectors weren't working. A day before the one-year anniversary, Attorney General Merrick Garland says the work they've done to prosecute people accused in the Capitol riot will not be their last.
As of today, we have arrested and charged more than 725 defendants in nearly all 50 states and the District of Columbia for their roles in the January 6th attack.
Garland vowed to hold accountable anyone who was responsible for the riot, whether they were physically there or not. Employees of a Starbucks store in upstate New York who voted to unionize last month have walked off the job. The employees in Buffalo say they don't have the staff or resources to work safely amid surging coronavirus cases. A Starbucks spokesperson says the company has met and exceeded CDC guidelines. Stocks finished lower, the Dow down 392 points. This is AP News.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code FREE.
I'm so glad you're listening to Devil Radio. It makes me so happy.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
At Knuckleheads, our knowledgeable staff knows the ins and outs of CBD. Whether you're a veteran of cannabis like the Devil Radio team or a first-time customer, the Knuckleheads team has the information to answer all your CBD questions. Never heard of a tincture? We got you covered. Looking for something to address those achy joints? We got just the thing. Stop into our new location at 520 State Street and mention Devil Radio to our knowledgeable staff to get 15% off your order today. Knuckleheads, your one-stop shop for CBD in Madison.
Do you need to hire? Let Devil Radio help your business find the right candidate with our Help Wanted half minutes. Devil Radio will create a 30-second job listing for your business. Play it on Devil Radio for the month. We'll feature your job listing during afternoon drive on Fridays, and we'll even publish your Help Wanted listing on Devil Radio 927.com's website, all for just $300 per month. If you're hiring, Devil Radio can help. Call today.
5 your local single source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
I find your lack of Devil Radio 92.7 disturbing. Do not fail me again.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Tuesday, the Wisconsin Hospital Association announced the number of COVID-19 hospitalizations has increased to 1,963 across the state, and the number of patients in intensive unit care has remained at the highest mark since the start of the pandemic. The Department of Health Services yesterday reported more than 8,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, a new single-day record, and a continued uptick from the spread of the virus over the holiday weekend. The Madison School Board will hold a meeting tonight to discuss the return to in-person instruction and will include the opportunity for public comments. Southern Wisconsin will be in winter weather advisory today until 6 p.m. with gusting winds that could get up to 40 miles an hour and snowfall around 1 inch of accumulation. 60% chance for snow and a high of 20 degrees. Cloudy skies expected this evening with an overnight low of 9 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, Hour 2, the January 6th Eve edition. Tomorrow is going to be a very big day in this nation. Think December 7th or September 11th or January 6th, days that will go down in infamy in the history of this nation. And the president, the current president, Joe Biden, will give a speech tomorrow, and his press communications team at the White House today, talking about Jen Psaki, said this: the president is going to speak to the truth of what happened, not the lies that some have spread since. I'd also note that President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat the former president represents to our democracy and how the former president works to undermine basic American values and the rule of law. Strong words, Psaki. Psaki noted that Biden has spoken repeatedly about how the former president abused his office, undermined the Constitution, and ignored his oath to the American people in an effort to amass more power for himself and his allies. Biden sees, and again a quote, January 6th is a tragic culmination of what those 4 years under President Trump did to our country. One more quote from Psaki. I expect that President Biden will lay out the significance of what happened at the Capitol and the singular responsibility President Trump has for the chaos and carnage. Now, why didn't Merrick Garland speak like that? The chaos and carnage that we saw, and he will forcibly push back on the lies spread by the former president in an attempt to mislead the American people and his own supporters, as well as distract from his role in what happened. Now, there's a comms major. There's someone that knows how to sell it.
I'm going to miss her. Really?
Jen Psaki. Well, that's what she said today.
Yeah.
Do you know that the former president planned to give his own response from Mar-a-Lago tomorrow afternoon? But apparently, Trump's been counseled otherwise. And, you know, he always takes good advice. I've heard it suggested perhaps he's responding in horror to the fact that he was betrayed. Donald Trump was betrayed by Sean Hannity. And if you look at the timeline, the cancellation of the January 6th address at Mar-a-Lago and the disclosure that Sean Hannity betrayed the president of the United States, well, they're basically the same time. So I don't think Trump's taking the advice of his counselors. I think Trump's a little butthurt. So if Trump's not going to do it, then who would be a suitable replacement to give the, Republican response? Well, I got two choices, two candidates for you, folks. Representatives Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Two finer Republican representatives could not be found. While former President Donald Trump will not be holding a press event to mark the anniversary of the riots he incited, let's call it a coup, two of his most loyal allies will. As flagged by NBC4 Washington's Scott McFarland, Reps Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are planning to deliver a Republican response on January 6th during a press event at 2:15 p.m. I got to assume that's Eastern time. They always write for the East Coast. As McFarland writes, 2:15 was the time on January 6th last year when the pro-Trump mob had broken into the Capitol. So the timing, conspicuous, right? They chose the very time when the insurrectionists, the coup d'etat attempters, the domestic terrorists broke into the Capitol. They're going to hold their press event exactly 1 year later. And that's when Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman, the black guy that led them away, well, it was 2:15 p.m. when he was leading them away from the Senate chambers. And I don't know if you recall the video. I believe it was during the impeachment. Mitt Romney, the former Republican presidential candidate, Mitt had taken a wrong turn, and Mitt was walking towards the domestic terrorist. And that very cop, Eugene Goodman, I believe, turned Mitt Romney, and Mitt fled. Because as readily as they would have hung Mike Pence, they'd have hung Mitt Romney's ass as well, I strongly suspect. A little bit of Trump's, pulling the plug. Trump had initially planned his own January 6th anniversary speech, but he called it off abruptly on Tuesday and cited the total bias and dishonesty of the January 6th Unselect Committee of Democrats, 2 failed Republicans, and the fake news media as a justification. And then he went on to lob insults at members of the committee as well as assorted political foes, including Adam Shifty Shift and crazy Nancy Pelosi. Always classy, that guy, Trump. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are going to give a response exactly 1 year after the mob broke into the Capitol. I can't wait. They're going to be, words to live by, words to, overturn a election by. A little bit more here. Donald Trump, what he's sending out today? Little message to his followers on the eve of the Capitol riot anniversary. MAGA Nation should rise up. That's the message being sent out by Trump today. Former President Donald Trump on Wednesday called on his supporters to rise up on the eve of the anniversary of the riots he incited at the U.S. Capitol building. Via roll call editor John Bennett, Trump put out a press release that falsely accused the Biden administration of calling for vaccine mandates for children and for closing schools to deal with the novel coronavirus pandemic. This is an outrage. The MAGA Nation should rise up and oppose these egregious federal government overreach. As Bennett notes, this statement, which was also reported by ABC News, is sure to raise eyebrows, given that it comes near the anniversary of when his supporters did rise up. Stand back and stand by. That's what he told them last year, right? The Proud Boys to start a deadly riot at the Capitol. A quote, very poor taste by the former president to urge his supporters to rise up on the day before the anniversary of the January 6th Capitol riot by the MAGA mob. Yes, poor timing indeed. So that's what Trump's doing today. Trump's losing his freaking mind. Because quite frankly, Trump was betrayed perhaps by Sean Hannity. That's got to sting. I mean, he's now had the benefit of the public reporting of the text messages that Hannity sent. And basically, Hannity was calling out the former president in real time to Mark Meadows. And the January 6th committee, they've got those. And they're trying to hold Hannity to come and give testimony. Now, Hannity is not going to be able to lean on the First Amendment, as the committee pointed out. And I've seen this. I've seen their request. Specifically, the committee says they will not ask Hannity about anything he said on the television. Anything that he could claim some sort of journalistic shield for. They said, we'll exempt all questions about those topics. All we care about are your communications with the former president and his chief of staff.
That's solid. That's sharp right there. That's all I care about too.
Former President Donald Trump may have canceled his January 6th press conference after learning that Fox News host Sean Hannity was talking behind his back in the days before and after the Capitol insurrection. In a letter requesting Hannity's testimony on Tuesday, the House Select Committee investigating the Capitol insurrection revealed several text messages that the Fox News host sent to former chief of staff Mark Meadows. The text messages appeared to show Hannity unsuccessfully attempting to rein in Trump. and urging the former president to accept his defeat at the hands of Joe Biden. Here's a quote. Whether or not Sean Hannity cooperates with the committee, and I would argue he's not going to want to, this is very bad news for Donald Trump. Gangle said of the text messages, Gangle's a CNN reporter, when he looks at these texts from his friend Sean Hannity to his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, this is betrayal. These are people around him talking about him behind his back, talking about what they worried about his state of mind. What's happening? That Sean Hannity is afraid that the White House counsel is just going to walk away and quit. So I think you really have to think about why Donald Trump canceled his press conference for Thursday. It seemed to come right after this news came out. Oh, that's really got a sting. Betrayed by the slanthead Sean Hannity. Gangle added that the House Select Committee released only a few of Hannity's text messages in its letter. I'm told there are dozens of texts and they are exchanges that go back and forth. So I think the strategy for the committee is, look, they want to see whether Sean Hannity will cooperate, but they also want people to understand that the people closest to Donald Trump were worried about what was going to happen, didn't think it was going to go well. And they wanted him to stop talking when it was over, but they couldn't convince him to do it. They knew it was wrong. Was it wrong to incite a riot and try to perpetrate a coup d'etat and, have a violent reaction instead of a peaceful transfer of power? Is that wrong? Who else is being targeted by the January 6th probe? This is going to come as a shocker to most. Sad news for the MyPillow guy, Mike Lindell. He has become the latest target of the January 6th probe. I hear that Stephanie Grisham, the former press officer that never actually held a press conference, Stephanie Grisham. Well, today she gave testimony to the January 6th Commission, and Mike Lindell, he's a target. But of course, the Pillow Man, he's fighting his subpoena for his phone records. And one must question, why are all these Trumpsters trying to hide their phone records? I saw Sebastian Gorka. He's a righty talk show host, the adverse journalist, he calls himself. I don't even know what that means. He's suing.
Congressional Thanos, Marjorie Taylor Greene is suing.
Well, Mike Lindell is suing. But none of these people have executive privilege. I mean, Trump doesn't even have executive privilege. You don't get to claim, I got a buddy who used to be the president, and therefore I want to shield all my communications from the January 6th committee. That's not going to work. It's going to get real ugly in crazy town. January 6th, I bet tomorrow, I'd like to think, is the beginning of the end. And the beginning of our greatness. Stick around. More Devil's Advocates.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
A lot of talk about the COVID-19 vaccines, and everyone has an opinion. So I went to somebody I already trusted, my doctor. Talk to your doctor or healthcare provider and make the decision that's right for you. Go to getvaccineanswers.org for the latest information. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, Don from Wisco Home Goods here.
Jeremy and I handcraft our 100% non-toxic candles from locally sourced materials in our Madison, Wisconsin facility. Wisco Home Goods candles come in a variety of unique blends and scents that you're sure to love. Add a little warmth to your home as the days get colder with one of our Midnight Cypress or Up North candles. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing candles and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
Occupy didn't start on Wall Street. It started on our street, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on. And your phone calls, your participation, always appreciated here at 844-967-2789. Even if I make you sit on hold for a bit, doesn't mean I don't appreciate you. I'll get to you eventually. And I've got an encouraging headline for those of you listening. I hope you're encouraged. Somebody's trying to hold Trump and his allies accountable for the January 6th. And it is a Democratic super PAC. So let me read a little bit. The Hill.com reporting a major Democratic super PAC on Wednesday launched an ad campaign seeking to tie allies of former President Trump to the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the Capitol ahead of the anniversary of the attack. Yeah, there's like 1,000 of them. 1,000, right? They're going to drop the insurrectionist list tomorrow. I'm going to look for all the fine Wisconsin Republicans that are on that list, like you, Andre Jack, and you, Bob Spindell. But anyways, back to this reporting at the Hill. Priority USA Action announced a 6-figure ad buy for 2 separate spots running in battleground states. The ads draw a direct connection between the tragedy of January 6th and the Republicans that Donald Trump has endorsed, who have explicitly vowed to subvert the will of voters in future elections. The ads are targeted specifically at individuals who have consumed less political news since Trump left office. So now you find folks. The first ad, titled Coup, Julie will be happy to hear that. They're calling it Coup, Julie. Features footage of Trump sowing doubt about the results of the 2020 election and suggesting the attempt to undermine President Biden's victory was just a test run for future attempts to subvert elections. The second ad, titled You Were Right, includes images from 2017's Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville and of an individual carrying a Confederate flag after storming the Capitol on January 6th. A narrator states, every single chaotic, disastrous day of Donald Trump's presidency reminds us that your vote to defeat him was absolutely right. You're welcome. Both ads feature a list of candidates who Trump has endorsed ahead of the 2022 elections, including Senate candidates Herschel Walker in Georgia, Ted Budd in North Carolina, and Rep. Bo Brooks in Alabama, as well as House candidates Max Miller in Ohio, John Gibbs in Michigan, and Rep. Paul Gozer. I'm really wondering if Gozer and Brooks are still going to have free movement when the election rolls around. Might be, held over until trial. A little bit more from the Priorities USA Deputy Executive Director, Anissa McMillan. She said this in a statement. January 6th was not an isolated incident. The Republican Party has sought to delegitimize our elections by implementing voter suppression laws that disproportionately disenfranchise Black and Brown Americans, intimidating voters and election officials, and promoting lies and conspiracy theories in their campaigns. Priorities will continue to call out these anti-democratic efforts unequivocally and communicate the facts that Donald Trump's Republican Party to the American people. House Democrats had planned a day's worth of events for Thursday to mark the 1 year since the Capitol insurrection, where multiple people died and dozens of law enforcement officers were injured after a pro-Trump mob stormed the complex to try and halt the certification of Biden's electoral victory. Biden will deliver remarks at the Capitol, as mentioned, where he is expected to condemn efforts by some Republicans to rewrite the history of that day and call out continued efforts to undermine American democracy. Yes, do so, President Biden. 844-967-2789. The other CJ, the good one from Beaver Dam. Welcome back, CJ.
Hey, brother. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy New Year to you, sir.
Wish Brian well for me. My question, since you got James Santel on tomorrow. I will be listening, by the way. My point in question is if you and I went and robbed a bank with 3 other guys in the car, I shoot somebody dead, are you not charged with an accomplice to murder?
You would be. Even if it was an
Even though you're the
unsuccessful
driver
bank
of the
robbery,
car.
CJ. Even if you tried to rob the bank and you failed to rob the bank, well, there was still criminal intent there. There was still a conspiracy there. And yes, I would be just as culpable as the guy that pulled the trigger, or in this case, incited the domestic coup.
So Merrick Garland said over 725 people have been charged.
Yes, sir.
Why is there not 725 people being charged for accessory to murder?
Well, that would be a bit of a stretch, CJ. Criminally speaking, I don't know that you could tie them all together as such, just because you're there. I mean, it'd be different if they came in the same car. But if someone showed up where there were thousands of other people and committed a crime, everyone in attendance is not also culpable for that person's crime. Maybe if you're the guy that
still had the same
drove
intent,
them over there.
Michael.
What's that, sir?
They still had the same intent. They still intended to rob the bank.
Well, I'm not. Yes, I get your point. I get your point, CJ. I don't know that the vast majority of the people in the crowd that day that were at the Ellipse that had been encouraged to come to DC, it's going to be a wild time. Trump sent out the text and the tweets when he was still on Twitter. No doubt that they were encouraged to come by the same guy. But the guy that was encouraging everyone to show up at the party, if I throw a party at my house, you're not culpable if somebody dies from over intoxication. But the guy who threw the party, I might have culpability in that case, CJ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jury of the peers.
Well, where are you going to find a jury of the peers? CJ, I appreciate you listening. Stick around. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. We got James Santel, the former U.S. attorney. We've got Mark Thompson. He is the Wisconsin elections commissioner. And we've got to find U.S. senatorial candidate Sarah Godlewski. Apparently she wants to hold Ron Johnson's feet to the fire. Some big event happened like a year ago tomorrow. And Ron said, it's just some friendly tourists. He wasn't nervous at all. But had it been some Black Lives Matter protesters, had they had some pigmentation in their skin, Ron would have been very suspicious. Come back with us. One last segment of I guess we got a half an hour still. Not done with this big show yet. Still time for plenty of your phone calls. 844-967-2789. We'll be right back. The January 6th Eve edition. Perhaps the other CJ will call as well.
From Columbus to Fox Lake, Devil Radio on WTTN 1580 AM is essential radio to get you through your day.
Hey, I'm here from Knuckleheads. Have you seen our new location yet? Come on down to 520 State Street for all your CBD needs. We have a huge selection of gummies, oils, and a variety of other CBD products. We also have a gigantic walk-in humidor. The knowledgeable staff at Knuckleheads will work with you to find exactly what you need. Mention Devil Radio at checkout to get 15% off your next order. Knuckleheads, now at 520 State Street. We'll see you there.
Wisconsin, you know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court, but did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites, Drew Holiday here.
And Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
They're worried about our power, so they want to take it away.
Don't let them do that.
You've got to block that shot.
Paid for by the Wisconsin.
A looming anniversary. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. Some 700 of those involved in the attack on the Capitol have been arrested and charged, and some convicted. Now, a day short of the one-year anniversary of the riot, Attorney General Merrick Garland.
The actions we have taken thus far will not be our last. The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law.
In the year since the assault, which led to the deaths of 5 people and injuries to more than 100 others, a Quinnipiac poll finds 93% of Democrats, but fewer than 30% of Republicans see the actions by the mob witnessed by millions on television as an attack on the government. The Grammy Award, scheduled for January 31st in Los Angeles, postponed over what organizers call too many risks from the Omicron variant. No new date has been selected by the Recording Academy. I'm Tim McGuire.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code FREE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code FREE.
For Double Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Tuesday, Public Health Madison and Dane County announced it is expanding COVID-19 testing hours at the City of Madison's South Park Street location, with more than 1,700 additional testing appointments being added. The new hours will be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Yesterday, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources requested feedback on the environmental impact of the Enbridge Energy Pipeline 5 that is being proposed to be rerouted through northern Wisconsin. Roughly 30% of the current supervisors on the Dane County Board will not seek re-election this year, setting up one of the highest turnover elections in county board history. The Madison City Council approved a blueprint on Tuesday evening for a new vision for Madison's South Side through millions of dollars of public infrastructure and private development. You're listening to Double Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil's Advocates, rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Hump Day Happier 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on. Your phone calls are welcome here, even if your name's CJ, at 844-967-2789. Want to turn towards my backyard for just a minute. January 6th, there are 10 congressional leaders here in the state of Wisconsin, 8 Congress people, 2 senators. I want to run down their reactions before I get back to the phones at 844-967-2789. They've sort of changed their tone, many of them. Craig Gilbert reports over at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. A year later, the shocking events that took place on January 6th, an assault on the U.S. Capitol, in an effort to overturn the presidential election, continue to divide the Republican Party, divide the Congress, and divide the American people. All 10 of Wisconsin's federal lawmakers condemned the assault on the Capitol when it happened, but with varying degrees of vehemence and outrage. After the violence, 2 of the 10 House Republicans, Tom Tiffany and Scott Fitzgerald, after the violence, sought to overturn the election outcome in Arizona and Pennsylvania. And they said they would have voted to overturn Wisconsin's results if the question had come to the floor. Let's not forget, Tom Tiffany and Scott Fitzgerald were elected on the very same Wisconsin ballots that they want to delegitimize and would have overturned their own elections by extension. But of course, they don't see it that way. In the months since the attack, the overall divide in Congress between how Democrats and Republicans have responded to and publicly remembered the events have grown. Every GOP lawmaker from Wisconsin opposed impeaching President Donald Trump over the events of January 6th. And everyone opposed the creation of the bipartisan commission to look into the attack. Every Wisconsin Democrat supported both steps. Do you see a little difference in the parties here? Every House Republican from Wisconsin voted last May to oust Wyoming's Liz Cheney from her party leadership position for her sustained vocal criticism of Trump for lying about the election being stolen. Did you hear that? Every Wisconsin Republican in Congress voted to oust Liz Cheney. Interviewed this week about the events of January 6th, Wisconsin Democratic Rep Mark Pocan said, "The day was a horrible day for our country, for our democracy. That day, it didn't matter whether you had a D or R after your name. You spoke in outrage about what had happened. But since then, we've watched people on the GOP side lose their vertebrae one by one." Now, Republican Glenn Grothman, who was also asked this week about his thoughts on January 6th and what he hears from his district about it, well, here's what Grothman said. "I don't hear a lot about it from my constituents. I'm thinking about the border right now. I'm thinking about inflation." Sure you are, Glenn. The concerns Grothman does have about January 6th now involve the way the accused rioters are being treated by the justice system. You don't care about how they treat the black people in Milwaukee, do you, Glenn? When they go into the justice system, just the white ones, just the good ones. And whether authorities are trying to cover something up about how events unfolded. False flag that January 6th, according to Glenn Grothman. Can you hear me in the 6th? Do you hear me talking to you? Grothman pointed to an October letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland that he signed along with Republican colleagues Louis Gohmert of Texas and Ralph Norman of South Carolina. Fine company you keep, Glenn. The letter acknowledged that there were people that committed serious crimes, but asserts the rights of the accused and the jailed are being violated, and seeks the release of additional surveillance footage from inside the Capitol that day. There is a feeling maybe people are hiding things about January 6th, Grothman said, without saying what he thinks is being hidden or why or by whom. Here's a closer look back at how lawmakers from Wisconsin reacted to the events of January 6th. The Capitol assault, while the violence of January 6th was condemned by everyone in the Wisconsin delegation, there were significant differences in the tone and tenor of those reactions and how much responsibility members assigned to Trump. Here's a quote from Tammy Baldwin. Here's what she tweeted back on January 6th. "I am safe, but it's disgraceful that our country has to experience this violence because of Trump's lies, conspiracy, and un-American attacks on our democracy." Mark Pocan, my congressman, said the president had basically encouraged domestic terrorism. Democrat Ron Kind, who's stepping down, not running for re-election, who was in the House chamber at the time of the assault began, said, "The president of the United States was inciting this type of behavior. And my Wisconsin colleagues who supported overturning a valid election," and he means you, Fitzgerald and Tiffany, "I don't know what they think people's reaction will be when you lie about a stolen election." Our pal, Democrat Gwynn Moore from Milwaukee, called it an incredibly disturbing and shameful moment for our country that was encouraged by the president. On the GOP side, Mike Gallagher, and I don't know if you're paying attention here in the state of Wisconsin, but Mike Gallagher, the congressman, sure does seemingly look like a gubernatorial candidate, like he wants to run for something. But Mike Gallagher was far more vocal in his outrage than most members of his party, both that day and in the immediate aftermath. In a phone interview with the Journal Sentinel, while barricaded in his office, he called the assault on the Capitol banana republic, and then he used a expletive. He urged President Trump to stop questioning the election results and to defuse the riot. "Call it off, Mr. President," said Gallagher, blaming Trump and other Republicans who had called the election results into question. In a January 14th, 2021 column to the USA Today, he again targeted Republicans who objected to the results, saying they were giving millions of people false hope that somehow Congress or Vice President Mike Pence could change the outcome of the election. That was, of course, a lie. What happened to Gallagher's courage? Where'd that go to? Where'd your vertebrae go to, Gallagher? In a column for Madison.com, he argued against impeaching Trump over the events of January 6th, but said, "President Trump has lost my support permanently." Then why wouldn't you vote to impeach the man? Just asking, Gallagher. If you were a more courageous man, you might have courage and cojones. Here's another quote. "Trump bears responsibility for the tragic events of January 6th. He lied to his supporters, insisted that his sacred landslide election was stolen, and suggested that Vice President Mike Pence should or even could reverse the outcome. He then dithered for hours as the vice president, the Congress, and its employees were in mortal danger, castigating Pence as a coward. Some other Wisconsin Republicans downplayed the violence. I'm looking at you, Senator Ron Johnson, who said on Fox News months later, by and large, it was a peaceful protest, except for there were a number of people, basically agitators, that whipped the crowd and breached the Capitol. While Johnson called the breach of the Capitol disgusting, he would later reject the notion that it was an armed insurrection, saying he felt no no fear from the crowd, and dispute the idea the president was responsible for leading the crowd on. Grothman offered a mild critique of Trump's actions on the day of the assault, saying the president should be exercising more leadership and diffusing the attack. Now, Glenn Grothman is the most Trumpiest congressman of all. He was like the most Trumpiest congressman, more than Louis Gohmert. So here's, kind of where he changed tone. But Grothman later called Trump's rhetoric on January 6th rally standard hyperbole and said, I don't think the president caused the riot. Grothman was more critical of the remarks made by the Trump rally by Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump Jr. House Republican Scott Fitzgerald, in an interview at the time, said, did President Trump contribute to that event? ? I think that President Trump thought he was having another Trump rally. Fitzgerald also called the violence that day intolerable, but you still voted to overturn the duly elected presidency of the United States and said you would have voted against the very electoral outcome that put you in the U.S. Congress, you jacknut. House Republican Brian Stahel issued a statement at the time of the attack condemning the reprehensible action of criminals inside the United States Capitol, but did not address the president's role. Stahel, much a coward as his colleagues on the Republican side. So anyways, don't have much respect for those in the face of the violence that would basically vote to overturn the election despite seeing what that could cause. I mean, the violence had already occurred before Tiffany and Fitzgerald, congresspeople from the state of Wisconsin, both pretty new, voted to overturn the election in Arizona and Pennsylvania and said, sure, I would have voted against Wisconsin as well. And Gallagher just lost his balls somewhere. I don't know where they went, but you are not suitable to be a chief executive of the local Piggly Wiggly. I hope you run for governor. You are a laughable candidate. What happened to your courage, sir? I thought you served your nation. Was Donald Trump serving our nation, or was he serving his own will that day, Gallagher? You understand the chain of command. Have courage. Have courage of your convictions. A year later, 844-967-2789. Here's a guy who does not lack for courage of his convictions. CJ. CJ, welcome back.
I guess the bad CJ, huh, Curdy?
Well, only if your wife thinks you're the bad CJ.
I wish you'd have a conversation with me, because I actually get to make, and thank you for taking my call, but I get to make one sentence, then you cut me off, and then, whatever reason you call me a racist or something.
Well, CJ, it depends on what your sentence is. I'm usually quite reactionary to what you say, but go ahead. Let's see how we play it out today, my friend.
Well, I believe you were invited on Fox News Sunday. I saw you.
I was on Fox News for a third time, sir.
Yeah, the number one news network, because they actually cover news. You were invited.
The number one cable news network. They're number 4 overall because ABC, NBC, and CBS all crush Fox News. They just don't talk about that much.
And they don't talk about crime. Like you were invited on to talk about crime.
Smash and grab.
And,
because that's the biggest problem in the country right now. Smash and grab crime.
Well, I know you want to make it about January 6th and former President Trump, but you folks, the Democratic Party is going to lose big in the midterm, because they should. You don't discuss things like crime, the border, COVID, Afghanistan. You glossed over stuff. You still want to focus on Donald Trump. January 6th committee will take care of itself.
If the former president is charged, let's talk about that for just a moment.
Any of those topics.
If the January 6th committee, and you know, my son and I had a similar talk the other night, CJ, and the kid's 15, and the kid's like, why can't we govern? I said, we cannot govern because we cannot move on from the events of January 6th because they're still happening in real time, CJ. You got an investigation, Gableman in the state of Wisconsin. This is purely a witch hunt. CJ, you know, we've decided the election. Can you and I agree, whether you like the outcome or not, Joe Biden's the president?
He is right now, yes. And you know what? How about the fact that Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, is refusing to pay teachers because they walked out?
How is that pertinent to the conversation about the January 6th insurrection at this moment in time?
I know,
CJ, because we can grab any topic from us and never really have a conversation, but you said you wanted to, and you just don't like the topics. So would I start holding your guys accountable, CJ? I mean, this started with the conversation about Fox News, and now you're talking about Lori Lightfoot. And how is that relevant to the conversation about January 6th? I'm sorry, what?
That's all you want to talk about. Curdy, come to light, man. See the light.
It is January 6th Eve. And I do play out in Chicago. CJ, here's my comment on Lori Lightfoot. Lori wants to keep, Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago wants to keep the schools open. Seems like you should be supportive of that notion, CJ. You know, Republicans want to keep the schools open no matter what. So anyway, she would encourage that notion. She advocates for keeping the schools open. And the teachers in Chicago, the teachers union, said, no, you know, we feel health compromised. We're not going to go back to school until we can properly staff the schools and until the pandemic has moved beyond this point. Now, CJ, there's no good answer, right? I mean, my kid's in school right now in Middleton, and my one kid came home. He's been closely contacted with a kid with COVID. My other kid's got a headache. They're both quarantined at home. So the in-person schooling, it's not working out either. I mean, I'd love for my kids to be in school every day, but, you know, I'd love for them not to die of COVID as well. That's why I vaccinated them. And that's why you listen to the devil's advocates and not CJ.
You love them enough to do anything for them.
Mom, I need to be wiped. Coming.
Including checking nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents that make a perfect holiday gift. Plus, at Wisco Home Goods, we believe in giving back. With our Do Good, Smell Good campaign, a portion of the proceeds go to local charities. So support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
What is dedication?
I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I'm excited to announce our new beer, Aoc Ipa. This IPA pays homage to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a champion of the progressive movement. Aoc IPA is now available in stores throughout Wisconsin. Check our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to see which stores in your area are carrying it.
The Devil's Advocates. Sausage making never looked so good.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It is January 6th Eve. Tomorrow's going to be a very big show. Got James Santel, former U.S. attorney, in the 3 o'clock hour. Got Sarah Godlewski, U.S. senatorial candidate, in the 4:20 slot. And got Mark Thompson, a fine Wisconsin elections commissioner, attorney by trade. And he's going to start doing a show right here on Devil Radio and WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM, The Shaw, Monday nights, 7 p.m. Mark Thompson, he's calling it the Paul Revere Show. And he's quite insistent. He's got lots to say. And also, another programming note for those listening along, Wisconsin Elections Commission chairperson, Ann Jacobs, is going to be on this fine radio station at 7 o'clock tonight on the Up North podcast with our pal Kirk Bangstead and Pat Kreitlow. And Sarah, I believe, is going to be there as well. But Ann Jacobs, that will be worth a listen. She is quite a fine guest. Ann Jacobs at 7 p.m. Tune in right here, Devil Radio, WAUK 540 AM. And we got callers. I'm going back to the phones. 844-967-2789. Pizza Box Mike, how you doing, man?
Not bad. You know, here's the thing that bothers me about CJ and a lot of people just like him, is they spend all this time punching down on people that are less fortunate than them, that they don't even know, and that none of these things affect their life every day as they get up and go about things as normal.
How do you know that CJ didn't have his living room smash and grabbed by a mob the other night?
Right, exactly. You know, everybody, it's just sad that there's so much damage done by the Republican Party that I guess in order for people like CJ to overlook that, they have to point out the minor things, and they are minor compared to the things that why people do smash and grab and why people have to go hungry in this country, and bragging about moves like Joe Manchin joining the Republicans because people won't go hungry. It's the exact opposite, CJ. You know, they're the ones that don't want to fund families and working class families, but I guess you don't consider yourself that. So what the hey, you know, and the other thing is, hey, they're not white people, so why not pick on them? Everything has to be about people that are in inner city, on the border. We talk about those issues, CJ. We just talk about them differently than you. We don't have hate in our hearts over them, right?
Well, you're not trying hard enough, Pizza Box. Got to gin up a little hate for poor people. I appreciate your call, man. Pizza Box Mike, my pal, he does a fine show right here on Devil Radio as well. Tune in Saturdays at noon. He is quite popular, and he'll be playing out on WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM in the Shaw. So, you know, tune him in this Saturday, Pizza Box Mike. But he's not the only one holding in the queue. 844-967-2789. Our pal Wisco Paul. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Crudy. I just want to talk about Robin Voss for a minute here. I hope I'm not redundant on him, but he's behind the vote fraud investigation in Wisconsin that, by the way, didn't happen. He's the one that put Gableman in charge of the investigation, and he doesn't know what he's doing, Gableman, to the tune of just south of $1 million.
Well, Voss knows what he's doing. He's casting aspersions. He's ginning up, you know, false accusations. And of course, he's a complete red herring. But let's not forget your buddy Robin Voss flew on a private jet down to Alabama to join Trump at a rally. And he's been giving Trump updates on the efforts of Gableman. So is this really an investigation, or is this an effort to kiss Trump's ass? I think we all know the answer, Wisco.
Yeah, you're right. He's kissing Trump's ass, but this makes him involved in treason because this is crazy. You know what? It just, okay, he made himself assistant governor or whatever the heck they did. It took half of Tony's power away to begin with, and then you have the gerrymandering on top of that. But hey, the bottom line is, who is pulling the strings for this boss? Who's behind the scene? Is it corporate? I don't want to get you in trouble here or anything, but somebody.
Who you get me in trouble with, Paul? The only one I get in trouble with is my wife, Mrs. Crudy. Otherwise, I'm pretty trouble free around here. I don't have corporate overlords.
Oh, anyway, I don't know who's in charge of this guy or where he gets his.
Voss is in charge of Voss. I think
Voss is in charge of. That's great. That's just great. He's running he's not on the right side of anything. I've said this before. The guy just makes me so angry. Not angry enough to do anything other than protest against the man, but it's just ridiculous. And you know what scares me is we could be in for 10 more years of this Crudy. Hey, with that, I'm gonna get off of here before I say something that is totally off the tee end here. I don't want to get like CJ.
Yeah, either of the CJs. No, one good CJ, and then there's the other CJ. Wisco Paul, you're always a welcome caller. 844-967-2789. Hasn't even earned a moniker like Profane Paul. Dick from Madison. Dick, welcome back from the garage. What's going on?
Oh, well, to CJ, that Rhodes Scholar and Mensa member, he's always railing on undocumented, unvaccinated. Hey, CJ, I got a memo for you. Why don't you go and get some of your Republican friends that refuse to get vaccinated? Why don't you try and do something positive in that light? And maybe we wouldn't even be underneath this horrible thing right now. I'm sure we wouldn't if that would have been done. That's not why I called, though. I wanted to speak to Merrick Garland. I painted a wall about a month ago and watched it dry and got more excited.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of delivery, if he was doing forensics in high school, I mean, he's second tier at best.
He's pathetic. I'm telling you right now.
Should that matter? I mean, do the tone of his words matter? Because ultimately all he's doing is trying to reassure the staff at the DOJ, yes, we're going to do something, and reassure the American people that, yes, we're going to do something. But Dick, does tone really matter? I mean, sometimes, yes, I think, but your thoughts?
Especially nowadays, because, as well as I do, it's all about the image and I don't have to tell you, you said it at the beginning of the show.
Should Garland have gone on TikTok? Would that have been a more effective communications platform?
He's got to go. He's terrible. Somebody has got to pick the mantle up that really wants to. Look, the John Lewis bill is sitting in balance. We don't get that through, we're done.
No, you make a good point. I don't know that is the responsibility of the Attorney General of the United States, but Merrick Garland did reference legislative response to the efforts by Republicans to make it harder for people to vote. And with a good, healthy dollop of gerrymandering on the side. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates. Don't forget, tomorrow's a big day. January 6th, going to have a big show. Former U.S. Attorney James Santel, U.S. senatorial candidate Sarah Godlewski, and Mark Thompson, the incomparable Wisconsin Elections Commissioner. Now, Earl Ingram, tomorrow night, he's got Milwaukee active Mayor Chevy Cavalier Johnson on. Chevy's got like $350,000 trying to win the, get rid of the acting position. And he's got Marina Dimitri, I struggle with her name, but he will have a big guest. All the mayoral candidates on the Earl Ingram Show. Stick around for that. It's next.
This is